Welcome to the podcast where relationships, confidence, and determination all converge into an amazing, heartfelt experience. This is Speaking from the Heart.
Welcome back to episode number 190 of Speaking from the Heart. Today we have Dr. Danielle Angela with us, and Dr. Danielle is a profit strategist, money coach, chiropractor, therapist, and neurosomatic release practitioner. Since 2015, Dr. Danielle has offered life and business coaching for female health and wellness entrepreneurs and has helped thousands of business owners achieve greater work-life balance and profitability, achieving the top 3% of revenue-generating female entrepreneurs in 2022. She's best known for helping service providers overcome fears about money, charge their worth, and build highly profitable freedom-based businesses utilizing both business strategies and somatic healing modalities from 20 years in holistic health and wellness. As the host of her own podcast and a new one called Wellness Plus Worth, which has started in fall of 2024, Dr. Danielle has produced over 300 podcast episodes in the last 8 years and is a sought-after speaker featured at notable chiropractic events since 2018. Danielle's greatest achievement, though, is raising 3 daughters as a single mom. I think this doctor, especially with what she brings to the table today, really shares a number of different perspectives, not only about what females can do, which we have featured so many of them, being able to showcase their ability to become so much more, but yet at the same time, Dr. Danielle, at the heart, really shares what freedom is all about. It isn't just about working hard and having all these notable achievements, which I just read, but also about having a strong work ethic, having that balance, but yet at the same time, building freedom. You need to figure out what's really important, and I think we talk about what that important factor is, especially in this interview today. But with all the things that she has done to help herself and her health, let that reality sink in. You can have a positive direction in your life, regardless of the setbacks that you might have, but it's all about ownership. Being able to work on yourself, being able to build that niche for yourself, that is, means that you have to work on your challenges, but also creating those opportunities at the same time. It's a way in which we're able to find not only freedom, but also being able to help others. And I think what you'll find today with this interview is that Dr. Danielle has really improved not only her life quality, but the life quality of so many others because of her awesome work doing that for so many others, regardless of what she might receive in return. But with that, let's go to the episode. All right, we're here with Danielle Angela. Danielle, thanks for sharing your heart with us today.
Thanks so much for having me. When we were chatting before you were recording, you said, ask anything. And I was like, great, what do I want to ask? I think I'll just ask you, what has been the best part of your day so far?
Ooh, that is a good question. I have to tell you, I have always enjoyed getting up in the morning, and I got up super early this morning. And the favorite thing I like doing is just coming in my office and grounding myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what it is about grounding myself that kind of helps me with my day, but I feel the energy. I feel a sensation of just all the things that are moving in me, and it allows me to kind of center myself. So I like that question because I normally don't get asked that. So you kind of threw me off. That's a good thing. I'm glad you asked that.
That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
When you say grounding yourself, what is it that you actually do?
I sometimes take my shoes off. Fun fact. And literally, I have carpet in my office. So for my listeners, I know this is just audio only, but I have carpet in my office. It's colored gray, and it's like that thin carpet that you walk around. It's not squishy or anything like that. It doesn't have any padding. It's just laid there for purposes of that, whatever nature it is to serve. But I try to ground myself in it. And I do clean, okay? I don't want you to freak out, Danielle, because I do clean because I have clients coming in and all that. But I find it that when I do that and I'm just in touch with what is around me, I feel like there's a piece to that. And I don't know how to quite explain it. I've tried to explain this to other people outside the show, but it's almost like it helps me with moving my direction. And sometimes my direction's a little bit scattered, so it kind of helps me to center that direction too, because I really am all about helping other people. So I love that question. Thanks for getting me thinking about it.
Can I share my best part of my day so far with you?
I want to hear that. Please do.
It's actually really funny because you mentioned that the best part of your day was getting up and going into your office and grounding. The best part of my day was completely the opposite. It was sleeping in late this morning.
Well, I'll tell you, I did that earlier this week because I had that sort of energy that I needed to have. So we need that rest. And I even tell my clients that too. We need to have that rest. You got to listen to your body.
Yeah, my kids are with their dad on Wednesday and Thursday nights every week. At least that's what we've been doing. And so when Wednesday comes, I'm just like, whew, okay, time for some rest. So yeah, sleeping in on Thursday mornings is like, that's a big part of recovering from usually 5 days or so of being a single mom.
Isn't that so interesting? It's the second part of the week, but yet it's a Thursday. And for me, at least in my world, like that's a rarity in itself that I'd be able to do that. Friday, okay, everybody kind of does it. We kind of chillax. We know that the weekend's coming up. But for me, a Thursday, if I get that blessing, that's pretty good. It has to feel pretty good for you too, especially if, like you said, you have the number of kids that you have.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you actually for mentioning that because I think that is something that having been a business owner now since 2012, that's something that I take for granted. Having time freedom was the biggest reason that I wanted to own my own business as far back as 2002 or 2003. And I have that time freedom now in so many ways. And it's easy to look at what we don't have, right? And still the ways that I want things to be different. But just hearing you say that really reframed for me the time freedom that I actually do have already.
I want to dig into that as actually my turn to ask a question because I am super interested in this. And I already let the listeners know a lot about you before we even got started. But what led you into wanting to have that time freedom? Obviously, I know that your kids are a very important facet of your life. And I love that. I love hearing that because sometimes we forget about what the priorities are, what we're ultimately doing. And you're one of the few guests I've had that prioritize that. So tell us, what has that meant for you to have that freedom?
Well, as I mentioned, I've really wanted to own my own business since around 2002 or 2003. I was 22 or 23 at that time. And I had spent a number of years already working for other people, working for big companies. Really, I worked for a national pharmacy chain. I had worked in a few different retail settings. And I always had to work someone else's schedule. I didn't get to choose my shifts. I didn't get to choose what time I went into work or less worked. I mean, I could maybe make some requests, and my bosses generally knew that I wasn't a morning person and I prefer the evening shift if possible. But that wasn't necessarily ideal either because who wants to go to work at 1 and not get home until 10 o'clock at night? I don't know. That doesn't sound great either. So just from like very early on in my young adult years, I had a really strong work ethic. And I thought, man, if I'm going to work this hard for any business, it might as well be my own. So I had to make my own schedule. And then I started my own business only after I had had my oldest child. She's now 13. She was 1, I think, at the time. And I started the business so that I could have more freedom to be with her and see her grow up. I felt like I was really missing out on a lot of her milestones. I left a job where I had a salary and paid vacations, and I had finally worked my way up to getting a corner office with windows on 2 sides of the room after having no windows for a long time. And lots of amazing benefits at the place that I worked at. I had no savings. I just quit my job and I was like, I'm going to start a business. And that's what I did. But I found really quickly that it wasn't quite as easy as I thought that it was going to be, not necessarily in regard to business growth. I was really good at getting the business to grow. What I wasn't good at was prioritizing myself and my family. For quite a while, I let the business be the most important thing in my life and the thing that I did pretty much every day of the week. But that's what I thought that I needed to do to be successful. And that's what I did.
Yeah. And I've worked with some business owners. I've worked with people that are potentially business owners too, where they have even said some of the things that you've said, where they feel that balance, trying to find it, which I have even learned, even myself, and I've been doing this now for a little over 2 years. There's no such thing as balance. You're really busy and then you're really slow, but you also find ways that you prioritize your personal time in doing that. I'm kind of curious, what led you to finding where you needed to work on that more? Was there a breaking point for you? Was there something else that happened? I was curious how that came about for you.
Yeah. I had started my business, and then maybe a year or two later, I conceived a pregnancy that was not planned, although I was very excited. And I thought, well, this is amazing. This is an excuse for me to now change how I'm working and start to make some changes in my business so that I'm able to be more present with my kids. And near the end of the first trimester of that pregnancy, I had a miscarriage. And I was really, really torn up by that experience. It was very difficult. And then 8 weeks later, I was pregnant again. And at that point, I felt like nothing was more important to me than having a healthy baby. And that if it meant walking away from my career, then that's what I was going to do. And so that's what I did. I handed the keys of my business over to another chiropractor that I had known since before either of us had ever gone to chiropractic school. So I had a great deal of trust in him. And I was like, here, you take this. I don't want it anymore. And he was like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, let's just make this easy. And I gave him the keys. I walked away. And in that next phase of my life, I had a lot more space, obviously, than I had had for a long time. I started to study, listening to podcasts, reading a lot of books. I took a course in online business, and I thought, this is what I have been missing. The course that I took was simply about designing a business that fits around your lifestyle instead of building a business and then trying to maybe one day have some life. It was such an eye-opening concept to me. I had never heard someone explain business ownership in that way before, or the potential to have a business that really did allow you to have time freedom. Even though that was the thing I had been wanting for so long, at that point, over a decade. What I did next then was I started to take what I had been learning from podcasts and books about online entrepreneurship and apply it to my profession, which was chiropractic. And I realized if I could take some of the things that I've learned outside of my industry and apply it to my industry, I could also help a lot of people, because there's a very high burnout rate in chiropractic. There's a high burnout rate in any kind of caring position,
Yes.
a caring role.
My mom was a LPN before she retired, and she worked at a nursing facility. So I completely understand that context. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I did next. I just started to kind of create a methodology. I started to help more women who were also chiropractors, who also had children, who felt like I did. If this is what it takes to be successful in practice, I don't want to do this. But is there maybe another way? How can I make this look different? And that's sort of the beginning of my online business journey.
When you say that you listen to podcasts or even books for that matter, can you give us like a couple of those that maybe you listened to that were inspirational? Because I feel sometimes when some people have said even to me, hey, you should check this out, they throw me to Simon Sinek, John Maxwell. Those are the business gurus, leadership thought experts. But in your field, I'm sure that there are people that would probably love to hear even what you aspired to, I should say, based on what you had listened to. So I wonder if you can share what some of those were.
One of the first things that comes to my mind is a podcast that was hosted by two high school A&P biology teachers. AP biology. One of the teachers, I believe, lived in Montana, and one perhaps in New York or New Jersey, somewhere on the East Coast, like Northeast. And I was listening to their podcast. I don't exactly remember how I found it. I think one of them had a YouTube channel where he taught different concepts regarding biology or anatomy, physiology. And so I would sometimes use his videos in class when I taught part-time at a university during this time. And I would just use some of his videos to explain concepts, especially if they were concepts that I'd struggled to teach myself. So I would just use the video. Well, here you go, everyone. So then I found the podcast that he and another instructor had started. And by listening to the podcast on my drive back and forth from work every day, I thought, you know what? If these two guys can do this, I bet I could do this too. When you first asked the question, what was I listening to? I tried to remember the name of the podcast. And at first, I thought it was Vertical Horizon. No, that's a band. I think the name of the podcast was actually Horizontal Transfer, which is like a chemistry kind of term. I don't know if it's still out there. It might be findable. Another resource that was really important to me, the course action I took was B School. That's taught by Marie Forleo. She still teaches it today. It's quite a bit different now than it was then, but it's a very in-depth course. There's a lot of information packed into it. It's really best for people that don't have a business yet, or they've really been trying to start one and it's just not gotten anywhere. I would say even further than that, for people that want to transition from like a corporate job into entrepreneurship, and they know that they want to do that in an online way as well.
I ask you that question on purpose because to kind of switch gears a bit, now you're even hosting your own podcast. You're doing all kinds of episodes. You're helping people to find that money, to find that opportunity to serve or overcome fears with that, as it says on your website. I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit of why that was the specific niche that you'd chosen. Because like you said, you were doing chiropractor work, you were doing all kinds of other things in your life. So I'm wondering, why was that the focus? Was there something that kind of led you into thinking that, or maybe it was a gift that you haven't used? I'm kind of really fascinated by how that shift had occurred to you.
Well, really, when I first started to try to start an online business, I wasn't going in the direction of supporting female chiropractors. I have a sports chiropractic background. I have a master's degree in sports science and rehabilitation. I worked in a gym when I was in college. I used to sell gym memberships. I did personal training. I've taught group fitness. So I kind of come from that world. So I thought that would be what I would focus on in my online business. And really, I never could create traction. I felt like I was doing a lot of busy work, but wasn't actually growing a business. And eventually I got to a point where I was getting so frustrated, I hired a business coach and worked with her personally. And she was like, I think that we just need to refine who it is that you're helping, what you're helping them with. And through our conversations in our very first session, she said, are you sure that you don't want to be doing business coaching for female chiropractors? And I was like, I can't do that. I'm not qualified to do that. And she said, okay. But then within just a couple of weeks, that's what we had settled on. And once I made that decision, everything started to shift. My business really started to take off from there.
Do I hear a little bit of detection of imposter syndrome as you got started?
Oh, yeah.
What were some of the initial thoughts that were running through your head? Because I love the fact, first off, you're working with a business coach. Even for myself, coaches need coaches, and I'm even trying to do that even in my life right now. I'm wondering for you, what was the ultimate turning point for that to push forward? Was it something that she said as your coach? Was it something that you kind of reminisced on and said, you know, I'm getting in my own way? What was that switch moment for you, that light switch that turned on that made that happen?
Well, I thought if I can step away from the fear, the doubt, the imposter syndrome, then maybe I would be able to help women have a different experience than what I had and help them to just be happier and have more longevity in the career that we chose. We invest a lot to go to chiropractic school. The cost is very high. It's similar to medical school in regard to length and cost and difficulty. And so a lot of chiropractors finish chiropractic school with $200,000, $300,000 of student loan debt. And that is a lot of money to pay back. It's very difficult if you leave the chiropractic profession because unfortunately our degree doesn't really offer another career path outside of entrepreneurship where we have the same earning potential. Some of the statistics say that female chiropractors, the majority stop practicing 5 years after graduation. And so that means the vast majority of cases, they've not made a dent on their student loan debt in those first 5 years of their career. Then they might become stay-at-home moms, or maybe they're working part-time in a school like I did. They might completely change careers and go into real estate. But regardless, their earning potential decreases significantly, and then they're stuck with that student loan debt for decades. It's a vicious cycle. And I thought, maybe this is the way to go. Maybe I can help some people avoid that scenario. And I'll follow this business coach's advice and see what happens.
It was almost like a leap of faith for you.
Very much. Yes.
You remind me a little bit of what even my journey has been, because I thought I would be a lawyer by this point. I would have been successful in the courtroom and doing all kinds of amazing things. But the one thing that stood in my way was the 2008 financial crash, which defined a whole generation of millennials in terms of what their path was. And a lot of lawyers were being rescinded job offers at firms at that time. And I kind of thought to myself, if I did this and also went to law school, I would be hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt without anything to show for it. But I find it that I'm glad that I didn't do that, looking back for a variety of reasons. Even as you say, you look back and you can see all these other people that maybe have not made it or had made it, made some moderate success. But to say that you worked with someone to take that to that next level and see the results that you have, that speaks volumes. And I want to point this out. It's a very important point, and I even shared with my listeners that you even have accomplished. You have made 7 figures now as a successful female entrepreneur. You're in the top 3% as of the last few years. What has that meant for you to go from where you were kind of questioning yourself to now being in this success category? Does that mean for you, though, that are you stopping, keep on plowing forward? What does it mean for you to have this success, but to also continue helping others? What does it mean?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I earned that ranking, I guess you could say. And yet it's often really hard for me to really connect with it. Like, wow, I've really done that. I've really done that. Okay. But I'll be very transparent here. And a big part of the reason why it's felt difficult for me to own that is because I'm not debt free. And a big part of the reason why I'm not debt free is because I experienced financial abuse in a previous relationship. And it's going to take me quite some time to recover from that. So, in regard to continuing to grow as an entrepreneur, that's a yes. Because I have really big financial goals ahead of me, especially now as a single mom. And I also feel like I'm just really starting to come into ownership of my purpose in all of this, which has become bigger than maybe helping some other doctors stay in practice longer. For me, it's become like, if health and wellness practitioners of all kinds are successful in their business, that means that they're helping more people. And if they're helping more people, then surely the outcome of that is that we have a healthier community at large, right? And so that's really the bigger mission for me. That's a way that I can make a legacy, essentially. If I can help more business owners be successful in their business and they're helping their clients, whether they're coaches, doctors, massage therapists, acupuncturists, whatever it might be, then we are all collectively making a more significant impact in our communities.
Wow. I was not expecting that as an answer. I was waiting for you to be like, yeah, I'm great. I have employees. I have people that work for me. I'm doing what I want to do now. I have that time freedom. And you threw a curveball at me that I would have never expected. And now I see why this is such a passion for you, Danielle, because helping other people to achieve that you're working through that despite all the things that have happened. And we don't even have to dig into it because to me, just hearing that tells me so much about your personality of why this is so important to you, why you want to help females, because that is what drives you, because you have seen that, you're working on it still. And you admitted, like, you might not have all the pieces together, but I'm still working on it. I'm willing to work with others because I've seen the success from it. What has it meant for you to be able to continue doing this journey then, helping these people that maybe are in a similar situation for you and they have been achieving success? So in other words, when you've worked with these people that are looking for the same, maybe they're looking for that financial freedom, maybe they're looking for that time back, as you have said, like you want to have that time freedom. Has that helped you in your own personal journey to attain what you have today? And if it has, why? In what way?
Well, what comes to me at first, just hearing your question, I don't know that this really answers your question directly, but over the last 2 years since becoming a single mom, working with my clients has been one of the most important things for me. And I've become a better facilitator in combination of experiencing hard things in life myself and being able to relate to all different kinds of challenges that people face in real life and creating a safe space for them. Also, when I can say, wow, I've been through something very similar and I know that you're going to be okay. As well as just like the actual practice of improving my skills.
Yeah.
And learning new techniques and new modalities as a coach. And so what has happened is my clients' results are blowing my mind the last couple of years, especially over the last year. Sometimes things happen for them and they share messages with me and I'm like, how is this happening? This is amazing. And sitting down at my computer for a while, a few years ago, it used to feel like I was just kind of going through the motions or like counting down the minutes with people. But now I am in a much different place. Oftentimes I come to sit down at my desk to meet with clients through Zoom, and I'm so dialed in, so focused on serving them that I leave feeling energized and happy and proud of the work that we're doing.
Yeah. I understand that feeling so well, even with the clients that I've worked with. And I feel that we have that extra attention that we give, not just because they pay for us and pay for the time, but knowing that they're working on themselves and seeing that they have that mind shift, or they're working on that business, or they're working on whatever it is. I find that that has been such a rewarding experience out of everything I've been doing myself. I can relate to exactly what you're saying. And I think that for people that achieve that, it takes a special kind of recognition for them to give themselves that space to say, yes, I was here, but I'm now here and I'm rising even further. I'm climbing that staircase and I see where that growth has taken us. I love that. I really do. I want to end with this because you also were working on a podcast that you are launching. It will be launched by this episode when it airs. It's called the Charging Your Worth podcast. I wonder if you could tell our listeners a little bit about that. And also, congratulations on your podcast that you had, which I would love if you shared that too. Having over 250 episodes, it is a crazy thing to be doing in this day and age. I'm getting closer to that number, believe it or not, with my schedule. But it's funny to see people that are just pouring their hearts into content like that. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that to wrap up.
Yeah, I've had a podcast since 2015. That's a long time. That's
It
9 years.
It is.
9 years of life that I have given time and energy and money to creating something that hopefully has helped people. And say that to just also acknowledge you for being at the point that you're at, having dedication and the motivation, the discipline that it takes to do something week after week, month after month, and sometimes year after year. And the podcast where we sit behind a microphone, sometimes we're talking with one or two other people on the screen, and sometimes we're talking to ourselves and we don't know if anyone's listening. So it can be a challenging journey. It's definitely a labor of love. So I do, yes, my original podcast is still out there. You can find it at the Health and Wellness Practitioners Podcast.com. All 250 episodes are there. There's a lot of discussion for the practitioner who owns their own business and wants to grow. Maybe they're looking at different unconventional methods, such as like having in-person services combined with virtual offerings as well. So there's a lot of good stuff there. I also talk a lot in the podcast about managing and preventing burnout. And that's something that I speak and teach on now for continuing education purposes. I teach a course for doctors where I'm educating them on the diagnostic criteria for burnout. That means they can go back to their practice and see their patients and know clinically what does the research say the criteria are for the diagnosis of burnout in a patient. And then if the diagnosis is made, what's the prognosis? What are the best practices? What are the management tools and strategies? And then open the discussion around, can we prevent burnout? Do we even know if we can do that? Or do we just relegate ourselves to it's going to happen to a certain percentage of us? Moving forward, then with the new podcast, it'll be a similar vibe, I suppose, because I'm the same person, but a different focus. It's really going to be for service providers. They're good at what they do, and they may or may not know that. And yet, as good as they are at what they do, they're still struggling financially. And it's a really difficult place to be in. So that can apply for a lot of different professions, coaches, all kinds of health and wellness practitioners. But I have a friend who owns a junk hauling removal business. And even for him, the struggle is also the same as it has been for me and for many of my clients. The more money he makes, the more challenging it gets, because when he's making more money, that means he's got more clients, and more clients means more time, and he's still working a full-time job.
Yes.
And one of the things that he struggles with is he gets requests for jobs, and he'll write a bid, and people are like, oh, really? It's that inexpensive? Oh, yeah, I'll hire you now. Here's the money. And then he's like, oh, should have charged them more. It was too easy.
Yeah.
He's also had times where he's created bids for jobs that he didn't really want the job. And he bid a little higher than what he thought the person would be willing to pay. And then they were like, oh, okay. They hired him anyway. So regardless of what kind of service you provide in your business, we all struggle with this balance of being in service truly to people, while also protecting ourselves and protecting our longevity and ensuring that we're not just working our lives away, but we're building wealth that we can pass on to our families one day, that we can live secure lives with. For a long time, I think that the status quo or the expectation was that if you care about people, you'll do what you do for free. And that might seem very noble, but it's not realistic.
Yeah.
Money is a resource. And when we feel a resource, we feel safe, we feel secure. And when we feel safe and secure, we're able to be co-regulators with people who need help. So the best way that we can help other people is to be resourced. And money is just a part of that. So it's kind of my long answer to your question.
No, I love that long answer. You touched on so many different parts that I wish if we had more time, we'd dive into more of those. But the one thing I will pull out of it is the importance of building that worth so that not only are you able to become the best version of yourself, which I use in my side of it to help propel what is needed for our future, you're bringing the piece that we often are afraid to talk about. And I was afraid to talk about when I first started. And now I've gotten a lot more comfortable with, which is charging your worth. Being able to share what that is all about is important to give yourself that love and respect that you deserve. And I think there's such a balance with that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Danielle, I want to say thank you so much for being part of this show. I want to give you the last few minutes, though, here before we wrap up. If people are interested in learning how to charge their worth and being able to work with you, I wonder if you can share a little bit of how they can do that. Maybe your website, your social media, all those things. Obviously, I'll put that in the episode notes, but I wonder if you could also share it here for our listeners.
Yeah, for the new podcast, there is a wait list available on my website. If you just land on the homepage, drdanielleangela.com, then you can submit your name and email address there to be notified when the new podcast is ready. And in the meantime, come hang out with me on social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Dr. Danielle Angela. Instagram, I'm very, very dialed in right now on a specific topic that I'm helping people with, which is for service providers to get more referrals into their business so they can stop wasting time on marketing and advertising that they don't really want to be doing in the first place. So if that's something that you want to learn more about, Instagram is definitely the place to come hang out.
There you go. Go on Instagram. I'll have the link in the episode notes. You want to check that out. Check out her handle. Danielle, I just want to say, I really appreciate you being so open here today. It takes a lot of vulnerability to share that we want to help people, but we also have to help ourselves first. And I love that you're still working on yourself, despite the fact that you've achieved what many people would love to call success when you say that, oh, I'm a 7-figure business owner. But financially, that doesn't mean that you have everything that you ever want to achieve. And I love that the pursuit of wanting to help women, to help their businesses, to help others, that's just so admirable to me. It's something that just goes right to the heart for even me personally of why I have people like you on the show, because it's just so important to share that mission, share that purpose. So for all those reasons, thanks for being on Speaking from the Heart today. I really loved our conversation. And I wish you much more success in your business.
Thank you.
I want to thank Dr. Danielle Angela again so much for being part of the show, being able to share so much of her story, creating that context for us of what it means to ground yourself, to focus on what really matters the most. And she even said it in the beginning. It's about the kids. The kids are most important. You need to be able to prioritize what is needed. And I appreciate her perspective, especially with everything that she's achieved, being able to be the top 3% revenue generating female entrepreneur, but yet at the same time, having this freedom that she's building, that strength. And that's sometimes very hard, regardless of your gender, to be able to achieve, because that means that we have to look introspectively, not only on what we need to work on, but also in her case, and amongst many other Americans that are single parents, having to take care of your kids, finding those opportunities for ourselves so that we are able to grow and prosper. But that also means that we have to have a strong work ethic. That's so important for our overall development. And being able to start and grow that means that we have to figure out what is truly important to us. But you have to find first that engagement. You need to find a place in which you can put that trust into somebody or something, so that you can build a business. You can build your life with someone. You can even do things that you never thought you could ever do. And I think that lifestyle is something that we need to talk about for a moment. Is it about building a business so that you can have that life? Or is it about building your lifestyle so that you can have that business? I think that we use the time that we're granted in a variety of ways. That content, that ability for us to get ahead in life means that we have to shift our mindsets. And that means that we have differing priorities of what those mindsets are. For Danielle's case, personal training, health aspects, being able to take on those goals, that means that she, for a many number of years, worked with other people. She had to learn her craft. That fear and that doubt that we have to overcome might come from not only longevity, which is a big part of what we talked about today, but it's about also leading outside of this. How do we develop a successful career so that we can help others, so that we are able to be the best versions of who we are? I think that is a very tough concept, because what defines successful might be subjective in many people's perspectives and views. But even with all those things said, success is something that we have to define through not only our goal-setting process, which is why defining them is so important, but overcoming that fear, that doubt that we're not able to overcome those things, which is why as we learn new things and we learn what we've done wrong in the past, that's what makes businesses really successful. That's what makes people really successful, is that they're able to overcome, get themselves in a positive direction despite any kind of setback that they might have. But more importantly, taking ownership of what their actions were. I'll tell you, if there's anybody that has ever been an expert on that, especially since being on this show, it's this person here that you're listening to, your podcast host. I've had to deal with so many different things in my life that for a long time, I didn't want to take ownership of those. That meant that I was weak. And as a male, that can be very difficult. But even then, I think we can equally say, in one respect or another, that we all have different situations. And that's not to mansplain this situation. That's just to say that we all go through these difficulties. The way in which we weigh that difficulty, though, really depends on how much we're willing to put into it, but also how much we're willing to change so that we can become better than what we were in the past. But we have to realize that we can still be working on our own challenges, but we also need to be working on our own opportunities. We need to be able to improve. Being able to be dialed in and focused, not burning yourself out, means that you have to learn what is it that you're really attuned to. And we've had many people that have had to go through burnout before they were able to get to really where they were today. Being able to serve that population niche, being able to protect ourselves, it means that we have to learn from each other what has been successful, what has been failures, which is why coaching, which is why masterminds, which is why small groups have been such a big turning point, especially in the last 20 years, especially when we see the wide vibrancy of so many of those groups wanting to take on that challenge, wanting to help people become better, whether that's learning a new skill, whether that's having some sort of accountability, or just challenging that status quo. It's no secret that even Your Speaking Voice LLC dives into that quite a lot. Even with all the things that we offer, it's all about accountability at the end of the day. That's what we want you to have so that you're able to become better than you once thought you could be. But it means that you have to start somewhere, and that means you have to ground yourself. Learn what those problems are, trying to address what those things are, not necessarily by yourself, but by working with somebody or a group of people that will help you every step of the way to become better than you once thought possible. And for all of those reasons, being able to attain freedom might be the most scariest thing that you would ever do. And I can understand why, oh why, you would feel very much inclined to not have anything to do with it at all. We got to remember, who are we really doing it for? And as I reflect on even our conversation today, I often want to challenge myself on the phrase of kids. Danielle obviously has 3 daughters. Those daughters are super important to her, as any parent would consider their kids to be very important as a whole. But for me, I don't have that luxury. I don't have any kids. It's something that I feel like I have missed out in life. But yet at the same time, I know that there's always an opportunity. And I know that at one point or another, God or somebody else will direct me into a focus that will allow me to have those kids. But when I look at the bigger picture of all the things that we're talking about here today, maybe we should redefine what kids are. Kids are not necessarily the physical beings, the manifestations of what we create. Or are they? Kids can be something much more. It could be what we leave as a legacy. It could be what we write as a book. Maybe even something that we sing, play, even instruments for that matter. Maybe it's something that we discovered in science, technology, or some other mathematical formula that will allow us to travel to the distant galaxies that are light years away. Maybe the kids that we're trying to develop also means being able to advance artificial intelligence, robotics, technology, the actual things that we use on this planet Earth to become better, to become smarter, to have more ingenuity. All these different things, these kids that we leave, are lasting legacies and opportunities for us to really develop a number of different things. So as I look at my notes and I look at and reflect on the conversation Danielle and I had today, I think that we can leave a lasting impact, not just on that profitability, not just on the things that we've been able to heal from, but also figuring out what it means to create engagement in new ways that we had never thought possible. As I've always advocated on this show, it's not just about the people that we surround ourselves with. It's about who we influence for those people to surround ourselves with and what we're willing to contribute as part of that bigger whole. I think that we often miss the mark when it comes to the busyness of our life and saying that it's all about me. Because at the end of the day, me doesn't always mean you. Do you get me? It's not just about the individuality. It's also about what we're willing to do, what we're willing to sacrifice for our kids. It's not just who we gave birth to. It isn't who we actually raised to take on the mantle when we pass away because of old age or some other unfortunate circumstance. It means that we have to leave kids lasting impressions of ourselves, regardless of what fear, doubt, insecurity, and other sort of influence might do to us. It's about really letting reality sink in once and for all that we're all in this together, and that one setback lets all of us and allows all of us to have those setbacks as well. We can be working on our own challenges together, but that means that we also have to improve. Being focused and being dialed in doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It means that you need that time at that instantaneous moment to become better. But serving that overall population, being able to protect ourselves, means that we also have to have a shared community. So today, I think what we learned from this conversation isn't just about what we want to achieve, but what we can all achieve if we're just willing to rewire our brain and use the kid methodology a little bit differently than we might have traditionally done in the past. That selfishness, that morbid curiosity of ourselves to actually discover something, might not just be for ourselves. And I think that in the practice that our guest has served in, I can understand why she wants to continuously do better. It's why I want to do better. It isn't just because of my legacy. It isn't because I want some sort of impression made on somebody else that's positive. Because let's face it, I can get that anywhere in my life. I could even pay for that positivity from somebody that's willing to be a cheerleader, rooting me on, working for my business. But I really encourage you. Do you really want to have kids that are selfish, self-centered, and not thinking of everybody else? Or would you rather have kids that leave a lasting legacy, take care of others, especially even you for that matter, and allow other people to see their true worth, their true value? Regardless of whatever way that you want to look at it, being a proud parent doesn't always mean that you have to look at just what's on the surface. You can look at what's underneath that surface, what really comprises who they are and what they've been able to do, all because of your influence to become better versions of themselves. So I hope that as you find that freedom, you find that adventure that you want to be on, be like our guest, be like those kids that are out there. Make a profound impact doing what you're doing for all the right reasons. And I will say to you that not only are you leaving that lasting legacy, but that is something that your kids, regardless of which way you want to look at them, will be able to continue to push forward for the rest of their lives, whether they're physical manifestations or not. Thanks for listening to episode number 190 of Speaking from the Heart, and I look forward to hearing from your heart very soon.
Thanks for listening. For more information about our podcast and future shows, search for Speaking from the Heart to subscribe and be notified wherever you listen to your podcasts. Visit us at www.yourspeakingvoice.biz for more information about potential services that can help you create the best version of yourself. See you next time.